The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Bye, good afternoon. Welcome to Mannin Line. Open line today through till 1, so the subjects are yours, whatever you want to talk about. Text 166 177. WhatsApp, same number. Email studio@manxradio.com. Call 66 13 68. We're talking about Henry Bloom Noble Library becoming Douglas City Library at a cost of about £8,000 yesterday. Any thoughts on that? By all means, do get in touch. I'm not surprised, says Texter 470. I'm not surprised people are so disappointed with the Department of Infrastructure. They installed a set of traffic lights at the bottom of Johnny Watterson's hill at the bottom and Tremode 8 weeks ago. Still not working. I saw a child very nearly getting knocked over at the weekend. Perhaps, maybe there'll be a big do. Maybe they'll get Mark Cavendish to turn them on. You never know. The traffic lights at the bottom of Johnny Watterson's Lane in Tremode. I refuse to put the heating on, says Daphne. It's only 15 degrees in Ballajor. I'm wearing a winter jacket in the house. Not putting the heating on. It's not happening. Howard's with us today. Hi, Howard.
Hi, Andy. It's only a memory jog for people that's on the island. Just looking at headlines on the internet there about the three-legged man that's disappeared of North Barrule.
Yeah.
That was built, I think, not built, it was laid out in stone. But does anybody remember the three-legged man that used to be at Knockaloe? It was behind the farmhouse, behind the farm itself, on a hillside, and I'd say it was at least 30 feet or more. But I'm led to believe it was in two different types of grass, or the three legs itself depicted in the grass was fertilised more. It wasn't stone, it wasn't anything of that ilk, it was two types of grass.
Yeah.
But at that time, that farm was a government experimental farm where they used to grow different types of wheats and things like that. They had laboratories there and everything until they handed over to whatever it is now. But that was the government farm. And that three-legged man was there in the 1970s, and it was very attractive and a talking point to coaches and other vehicles that were travelling around that area because it was clearly visible from the Patrick Road. So that disappeared without too much of a fuss, but I think the government had an idea behind it. So maybe it's the same people. Well, not the same people. They'd be too damned old to be climbing mountains now.
So if you could see it from the Patrick Road, in my mind's eye, whereabouts was it then, if you're coming down the Patrick Road?
Well, if you're coming from Peel and you come to the crossroads at just by Knockaloe, you come to the crossroads.
Yeah.
If you were to stop at the crossroads and look immediately to your right, there's a hillock.
Yes, yeah.
It occupied the majority of that hill. It was a fairly large three-legged man. And there's people that are of my age, they will remember it. And it was there for many, many years and then just left and disappeared. It never returned. So, and that was always a talking point because, as I've said before, in the 1970s, I was a professional beggar and I was driving coaches. And we used to always talk about the three-legged man, and all the drivers were proud of the island, and then this just disappeared. So maybe the same mindset, I'm not saying it's the same people because they'll be too old, the same mindset is within the government or whoever's taking this one off North Barrule.
Yeah, I wonder, and as you say, the three legs is always a talking point with people.
It is. Well, I mentioned it before that a group of us used to go to Germany, and it was with the Model Boat Club. And we always had the three legs of man on our polo shirts. And people used to look at it. This is in Dortmund. And it's only afterwards one of the lads said, I think I know why. Because of the three legs of man, its resemblance to the swastika.
Oh, good grief.
Yeah, and it wasn't until after that we realised that people, at first glance, think because the swastika is banned in Germany. Now, it's always a talking point about, as you rightly say, the Isle of Man, and it's a lead into the Isle of Man.
Well, they always say, don't they, it's our differences that make us different. So why would you want to rub a difference out?
Exactly. And if that was put there to emphasise the Manxness, the heritage of the island and the three legs, what's the point in taking it away? It wasn't doing any harm to anybody. It's one of these stupid ideas that people get. It's like cutting down that sycamore tree in the UK. Some idiot of a fool of a person goes up and removes it. But it must have been a major task because apparently it was a fairly substantial lump of decorative three legs, all done in stone. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, was that even painted white, the stone?
I wonder. Oh, right. Okay,
so
thanks, Howard.
Maybe people of similar age to myself will remember that three legs out there.
Okay. All right. Well, if anybody doesn't... Thank you, Howard. If anybody remembers the Knockaloe three legs, tell us more about it. Who was responsible for it and who got rid of it as well? I was in Derby last night at the meeting. What became clear was that due process wasn't followed. Mr. Cannon talks about accountability. Which minister is he going to sack? Is it a sacking matter, Adam? Or are they both at fault for not following due process? Well, apparently it's not going to be an airport. It's all about airspace. Thanks also to 068, who just says, a pointless waste of money to change the name of the library to Douglas City Library. Sounds like a football club name. Henry Bloom Noble was a wonderful benefactor of Douglas. It's only the right thing to do that the library retains his name. Actually, if you notice, I don't think they've used the name Henry Bloom Noble Library. It's HBN, doesn't it? HBN is on the front. But anyway, just a thought. The Douglas City Council want to call it the Douglas City Library. And Mark's with us. Hi, Mark.
Hi, Andy. How are you? Okay.
Good, thanks.
Good. Andy, unfortunately, I wasn't able to. I'm just talking about renewable energy, not from a climate crisis point of view, because I don't think there is a climate crisis, but just more from what the economic benefit to the Isle of Man would be. Unfortunately, I didn't go to the Orsted. I was off island and I wasn't able to go. But reading online, I still think there's the missing piece of information is what would be the financial benefit to the Isle of Man. So if the general public want to make a decision, we need to know what the financial benefit is. And I think it was Howard previously said, is it free electricity? Well, if it's free electricity, I might be for it, But that wasn't the main reason for my call. The main reason for my call was, I think a couple of weeks ago there was the environmentalist talking about wind farms.
Yeah.
And I mentioned anaerobic digesters, and he said, well, there's not enough land on the Isle of Man. And I've gone away, done a bit of research, and basically to power 10,000 homes in the Isle of Man all year round, because anaerobic digesters can create base load, it would require 570,000 tonnes of waste, organic matter.
Yeah.
Now, the Isle of Man can generate 875,000 tonnes of waste. And that's a combination of dedicated energy crops, which is a small amount, 10,000. I'm going to bore you with some stats because I don't like when people say things can't be done. So agricultural residue, 4,000. Agricultural waste, 4,000. Managed feedstocks, 10,000. Wood products and residue, 50,000. Sewage sludge, 2,000. Animal waste and slaughter waste, we'll have a lot from that. In the news recently, we seem to have a lot of slaughter waste, 18,000. Fats and oils, 60,000, sugar beet, 100,000, marine feedstocks. This is the interesting one, kelp, which is now being grown in Norway, Australia, and that's a marine-based product that can be grown on the Isle of Man. We're an island, 500,000, and dairy processing rate 15,000. So I can't remember the chap's name, but it was incorrect. The Isle of Man could have an anaerobic digester, but again, it comes back to the point is why is no one talking about it? They're just talking about wind and solar. And by the way, I'm for wind, I'm for anaerobic digester, and I'm actually for gas as well. I'm just interested in the economic benefit to the Isle of Man. And I think the anaerobic digester could benefit the farmers significantly. So I just wanted to make that point, Andy, really.
That's
if
good.
you've got any comments on it.
And by the way, if you've got any of that written down in an email, just forward it to me, would you? I'll be interested to see that.
No, absolutely. It's my own research, Andy, but I was travelling on a bit of time, and the kelp is really interesting because there've been studies in Norway, Australia, Ireland, I think the UK as well, and it's a marine-based weed, basically, which can be used to put in an anaerobic digester, and accordingly, that could generate 500,000 tonnes of waste per year. And the other thing which really irritated me about the environmentalists, he said that an anaerobic digester is not environmentally friendly. Well, the CO2 is biogenic, I mean, it comes from living organisms such as ourselves, right? So he's basically saying any CO2 is bad. Well, we produce CO2, as does an anaerobic digester, and it's far less harmful than fossil fuels. And the waste from an anaerobic digester can actually be used as a fertilizer, meaning you don't have to use chemicals. And by the way, I have no interest or no financial. I'm just interested in ADs, Andy. I've got no financial interest. Just want to make that clear. I'm pro-gas, pro-wind if there's a financial benefit to the Isle of Man, and also pro-AD, which is probably an unusual position.
You see, at the bottom of all this are the numbers. And one thing that, if I can say this, one thing that gets my goat is when people try to overcomplicate things, because I'm a great believer in actually nothing is complicated. It may be just aggregations of simple things and things like numbers. And as you say, we're never told what the benefit to the island is of the wind turbines. If they said to us, within a ballpark figure, it's going to make the Isle of Man £50 million a year, or 10 million, or 100 million, however much it is, it will be nice to know whereabouts we are so that we can all actually take a rational judgment.
Absolutely, Andy. And, I'm not I don't believe in the climate emergency. But if the wind can make the Isle of Man money, the wind farms can make the Isle of Man money, let us know what it is. Let us know what the impact is to the Treasury, and can we get free electricity? If we know that, I think a lot of people will make the decision. And it's that lack of information, which is, the silence is deafening almost. Why not just let us know?
Particularly as it's the Isle of Man, and we're going to find out anyway.
Exactly. Well, you'd hope so.
Okay. All right. Appreciate that, Mark.
All right, Andy. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks. It's 12:20 on Manx Radio. Mannin Line's with you, and so is Charlie. Hi, Charlie.
He's right. There was a 3 legs there. There was also a horse there.
At Knockaloe?
Yes. I talked to somebody who worked at Knockaloe years ago, and I asked when it would disappear. He said, we used to put phosphate down on the grass to make it a different colour.
Is that so? So who did it then? Was it the government or a farmer or who?
It was the government. Government at that time, because I first got a point out by my father. My family had coaches and taxis, and he pulled up on the Patrick Road. Now, do you know where the entrance to the car park is over the weekend?
Yeah.
That lane goes up to a quarry, and on the south of the quarry, there's an old rifle range where the guards at Knockaloe used to practice shooting.
Right.
Now, between that track and the outcrop of fir trees, which is on the hill, that was the field that was they had the 3 legs and the horse in.
So when was it?
Well, I first got pointed out, I think I must have been about 5 when my father spoke to me.
My word.
That's in the 50s.
And when did it go?
Oh, I think 10 or 15 years. It just seemed to disappear about 10 or 15, 20 years ago. Because people stopped caring for the area.
Yeah.
But it used to be a big thing for the coach proprietors to stop on their tannoy, get these people on the coach to look across and see the three legs. And the horse wasn't as visible. The three-legged was. And until you got told roughly where the horse was, you couldn't really see it.
Wow. Okay. All right. I appreciate that, Charlie. Okay.
Yeah, it's good. Basically, because it's going back to the 50s. It's getting into our history, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. All right. Appreciate it. Thanks, Charlie.
Thanks.
Cheers. Now, 22 minutes past 12. If anybody has a photo, if you have a photo of the Knockaloe three legs, that'd be nice to know, wouldn't it? Of course, nowadays, with everybody having cameras, you got photos of everything. Times change, eh? And Ned's with us now. Hi, Ned.
Good day to you. The last caller has covered most of what I want to say. I lived at Knockaloe just after I got married, and I was aware of that situation. I wasn't aware of a horse. Now then, I was led to believe, and I leave myself open to be shot down here, that the three legs was originally thought up and designed by Mrs. Howie. Mrs. George G.W. Howie was agricultural organizer at Knockaloe for a number of years, and I was given to understand that it was his wife that set it out and started to fertilise the demeaned area. And
how big was it, Ned?
Oh, it covered the whole field. It would be, I suppose, oh dear, something like 50, 60 yards across in both directions. It was quite prominent, and it was being fertilised. I'm not saying every year, but that's how it was identified, was with fertiliser. And it was Mrs. Howie that I was told that got the credit for the idea and the implementation of it. But I don't guarantee the authenticity of that. That's what I understood. And George Howie was a Patrick man, and he entered into the spirit of the thing, and I believe that would be entirely possible.
Okay. All right. Appreciate that, Ned. Thanks for calling.
Okay. Toot-toot.
Good to hear from you. 24 minutes past 12.
Hi, I'm John McGuinness, just wishing Manx Radio a happy 60th birthday.
We shall keep on honouring Henry Bloom Noble, and shame on those who think differently, says Isabel in Onken. I would assume there'll be lots of people who remember those three legs in the field at Knockaloe, and I don't know why it disappeared, says 776. Also disappeared the prom tail lamps with the Triskelions. I wonder if they're stored, says John. Thanks also to Alan, who just says, shame about Livertome, a very important charity going under for the need of a small amount in relative terms. Yet we're pushing ahead with all sorts of other things, says Alan. Well, we wait to see what happens to Livertome, and we wish anybody involved with Livertome all the very best. But it does seem like David Gaughan said there could be some sort of restructuring. But we watch them. They've done some fine work over the years. And David's with us now. Hi, David.
Hi, Andy. I just want to say, today was brought to my attention of the Banksy in Onken, and I'd love people to actually go past School Road and what we used to call, it's now called Triumph Engineering, the biggest factory in Onken there. And the Banksy is, the grass was growing wild out the front. It used to be a great place for employing people, and it was always kept neat and tidy. And it was drawn to my attention this morning by one of the residents spoke to me and said, you want to go round and have a little look. Whoever's cut the grass has cut right round all the cushions and left them standing.
Standing?
It's a work of art, and I didn't have the camera this morning, but I'm going to get it to you. Because I think what we need to do now, the people of the Isle of Man, let's go somewhere and do things. Let's do a Banksy somewhere else on a hillside.
We'll call it a Manxy.
I think this guy must be connected to the Banksy, because he's trimmed round the grass, which was nearly 2 foot high, and each of the cushions that were growing in bits of the grass, he's cut round them. And they're left standing. He hasn't even complied to the Weed Act 1957. Neither has the government, to tell you the truth. And as far as the bush shelters go, I'm just embarrassed that a DOT department I've asked them the question now, when were they last cleaned? And when were they last looked at? And they're trying to say to me now, we'll look at them next year to see we might replace them. Come on.
It's interesting. I mean, it's interesting, as you pointed out the other day, that's literally a hop, step and a jump away from PokerStars, a multi-billion-pound company, as you say. If they have anybody who wants to jump on a bus, it just looks a bit silly, doesn't it? I mean, didn't bus shelters used to be cleaned routinely, wasn't there? Didn't they? Am I imagining that?
No, there is a routine for them, and I've asked for the copy of the routine to see if they still... If you had an asset, say you were the keeper of the buses, you know, you might do a better job, actually, but say you were the keeper of the buses and you knew all your bus stops on the Isle of Man, well, there must be loads of them. Eric will tell you the ones which he can't get on a bus because they're not in the right shape or height. But if you had that asset, what would you do? Every 3 months or every 6 months at least, you'd go around your assets and check them to see poor, need to be knocked down, you know, for health and safety reasons. All those issues, they're not looking after the assets they've already got. And this is what annoys us all. It annoys me. But the other thing I was going to say to you, what's happened to that survey from the DOI that was done by an English company that went back into England on English stamps, the self-addressed envelopes? What's happened with that? We haven't
not heard anything about that.
And that was part of there was all sorts of questions on it regarding vehicles. Are we doing this? Are we doing that? Some of the things I thought were a bit out of the box, but somebody was supposed to respond from the government. So I don't know who it is. So it has to be left then, doesn't it, to the chief executive? Emily is responsible for most of it down there. Mr. Krugel's the minister. And we still haven't got the weeds cut or the cushions cut.
You just wonder how many people then who are responsible for the bus stops, how many people actually use the buses? Because surely if they use the bus stops, they do something about them. I don't want to labour the point, but I will. Bus stops are like public conveniences. Now, I'm not saying you should do that, but what I'm saying is they are public facilities, and the public should be treated with respect. There should be enough public toilets, and the public bus stops should look attractive.
Decent. Yeah. So what do we do then, Andy? Do we form an organisation and we do guerrilla gardening? And part of that army that we task these to do, we suddenly appear at night, like Banksy's doing in England. I love him to be in the Isle of Man. It
would be nice if the government is true, and they've said it more than one time, we've got no money, if they allowed citizens to do things like that, like Bill Dale's got his beach buddies, we could have bus stop buddies, where we went around and painted the bus stops.
And I can give you an actual fact. On the Elm Tree Road in Uncan, near Uncan Pensions Club, and the Co-op, I'll plug them, there's a disabled spot. We're still waiting for the yellow symbol to be painted on the deck. Now, last week, I'm not blaming the lads, it's down to management and the political members to get involved, is why have we had to wait now, since TT Week to now, and it's still not done? It doesn't comply with the law, technically, till that yellow symbol is painted back in again. I offered to paint it. The answer was, Mr. Quirk, you can't do that because A, you haven't got the right paint, and B, you haven't got insurance to do it. We're talking about a little symbol about, 2 foot high and a foot wide, and going over with yellow paint from B&Q. I'd get it for free.
Okay. All right. Thanks for that.
Hello.
Good to hear from you. 29 minutes before 1. The money Douglas City Council, Hillary, Douglas City Council want to spend renaming the library could be used for a replacement playground in the Promenade Gardens, not a fancy and practical one like they're proposing. Let's call it a statement, shall we? Just a good quality playground, says Hillary, that would stand the test of time and the weather. It's a disgrace that the playground hasn't been replaced. Children need to play. And Stuart's with us. Hi, Stuart.
Hiya. Hi, Andy. The 3 legs at Knockaloe.
Yeah.
Ned is correct in that it was George Howie that started it, or his wife designed it. But actually, there was 2 designs. The first one was a lot bigger and extended over the top of the hill. And it was then reduced in size to just cover the what was seen in later years.
I'm fascinated, Stuart, as to how Mrs. Howie designed the darn thing.
Well, that I don't know because I never actually met the lady.
Yeah. But I mean, this is before computers and what have you. This is somebody you can't just draw these things. You need to know what you're doing, and somebody obviously knew what they were doing.
Well, each corner of the 3 legs, there was a small white post, which you wouldn't see from the road.
Right.
And what we did was a long piece of string was laid from post to post, and then somebody would go down to the main road with good eyesight to check that we hadn't missed a post, and then you had a bucket and half a bag of nitrum per leg. You put it in a bucket and you walked the whole thing, spreading it by hand.
By hand?
Yes. That's what gave her the 3 legs the colour.
Yeah.
The rest of the field, because bear in mind it was quite a steep field, didn't receive any fertiliser of any description at all.
Well, do you know anybody, Stuart? Somebody somewhere must have a photo of this.
I probably have, because I lived and worked there for 30-odd years.
Oh, crikey.
And I would say that it was stopped around about 1992.
1992. Who owned the farm, Stuart?
It was the department, well, it was then the Board of Agriculture.
Right.
It was government owned.
And what was it? What was it? Experimental husbandry? What did they do there at Knockaloe Farm?
Well, I was amused to hear the comment, the laboratories up there. Well, in 30 years, I never found one. It was a lot of breeding programs. We supplied, in the early days, they supplied breeding stock we had a farm sale every August, and we supplied bulls for sale and suckler cows for sale on the island.
Did you enjoy it there?
Yes, I did.
Well, if anybody's got a photo then, and we want to find out G.W. Howie, George Howie's wife's name as well, so we can give her full credit. Yeah,
well, I have seen the original plans, but I think they've probably long gone now.
Oh, well, somebody will find them. Stuart, I appreciate your time today. Thanks for calling.
Okay, no problem.
Good to hear from you. So, Mrs. Howie, G.W. Howie, George Howie's wife, designed it, and it was done with nitrum. Nice to know, isn't it?
The Isle of Man Creamery Farmers Cooperative was founded in 1934. A lot has changed in the last 90 years, from milk deliveries by horse and cart to the latest electric vehicles and fully recyclable bio-based packaging. But some things stay the same, like the dedication of our team, including local family dairy farmers delivering milk from high welfare herds, fully accredited as Isle of Man grass-fed. Isle of Man Creamery, crafted to perfection for 90 years.
The summer holidays might be coming to an end, but Manx Telecom is here to bring you some joy. Save £149 on a brand new laptop or MacBook with a Go Roam unlimited tariff and handset on a 36-month plan, including 20 gig of inclusive roaming data for the UK and 36 other countries. Perfect for staying connected home or away. Sign up in store today or call 624 624. Visit mt.im for details, terms and conditions.
I began to struggle with the stairs, but I didn't want to leave our family home. So my daughter told me about Acorn Stair Lifts and their new showroom in Douglas. I was able to try the stair lifts and find the right one for me and the home I love. They were so friendly. The whole process was hassle-free and they offered the whole package from installation to servicing. Choose the island's first choice for stair lifts. Acorn Stair Lifts, South Quay, Douglas.
Call Acorn Stair Lifts now on 672 414 or call into our Douglas showroom. Goals.
Hello, this is Beth.
And I'm Howard, and we're here to tell you about our podcast, B&H Gold.
Which actually sounds like a brand of cigarettes.
Yes, that's the joke.
What, to encourage smoking? That's not funny.
No.
And we should say other brands are available.
No, it's not about advertising.
Well, what is it then?
It's our podcast, you and me, chatting about anything which makes us smile.
Well, shouldn't we call it Beth and Howard Waffle for a bit about vaguely funny stuff then?
No.
I'm going to have to think about this in the management meeting.
Do you have to think about time management in management meetings?
Yes.
Because we've run out of it now.
Oh well, never mind. Look, just say, if you want an antidote to the serious side of life, check out the B&H Gold podcast via the Manx Radio website or your usual podcast provider.
But you've said it now.
Well, there you are then. I still think it's a rubbish name.
B&H Gold, it's...
I've said it.
Right.
Hold it, brethren. Hold it, brethren. Hold it.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Everybody's sending photos in. Thanks for the photos. I think it's on Facebook of the 3 Legs by Knockaloe. Terrific. Especially Sarah P. and a wet onken. Thank you also to Pete and also the regular application of fertiliser on the 3 Legs ceased a number of years ago, which is why it's no longer seen. Thank you to lots of images on the Manx Nostalgia Facebook pages. Norman Gorn, who worked at Knockaloe Experimental Farm, was involved in laying out as well in the late 40s and in the 50s. Thank you to WhatsApper 323 and also to WhatsApper 924. The bus stop next to Garth Commissioner's office in Laxey is yet another dilapidated mess of the village. At least now we know the commissioners are keeping an eye on it in case it gets cleaned up or painted by somebody other than them, just like all the derelict and dilapidated houses there are in Laxey and Mackle and Lonnon that they've decided to do nothing about, unlike Douglas and Ramsey. That's 134. And Tony's on now. Hi, Tony.
Hi, Andy. How you doing?
Very well, thanks. It's a shame about this weather.
Well, it's global warming, didn't you know?
Oh,
did you not get told that?
Don't you start.
Yeah, well, I want to comment on the... I switched off the radio because it was so ridiculous. Your panel of people the other day, there was 3 or 4 comments. One was... the floods in Laxey were down to global warming. No, they were down to the DOI not cleaning out the riverbed. That's the first thing. That's one, for sure. And then we were told we should worship the wonderful job that the Chinese are doing in making their economy much better because they are lowering their CO2 emissions. Well, I don't think that's correct at all. The reason they're doing that is because they're selling the carbon credits from making batteries, lithium-ion batteries for cars, they're the biggest manufacturer in the world, with power from coal-fired power stations, which I don't care what you say, that is not the right thing to do. If it was from a farm of photovoltaic panels, I can understand it a bit more. So there's a load of comments going round, especially from the people who are in favour of this, on global warming and everything else, that are completely erroneous and wrong. And when they're challenged, they won't agree to it. They won't admit it. I just think there's just a huge amount of rubbish being spoken.
I think also when it comes to, and we chatted to the guy who lived in China, who basically said, you can't believe a word the Chinese government say about anything.
Well, I'd agree. Look at COVID. Oh yeah, it wasn't from here; it's from America. I mean, and they never helped one little bit to try and identify what was wrong, because they bought effectively the World Health Organization. And the other side of it is all these lithium-ion that they're getting, or the lithium for sure, is being mined in Africa and other places for Chinese companies by kids, which is toxic, and they're leaving a terrible mess behind. So I'm not against wind turbines, but I'm against people saying that it's going to give us cheaper electricity.
I think it's...
Bonzo told us... Yeah, go on.
No, I was saying, just regarding the Chinese, it's just... and I don't want to sound certainly jingoistic about it, but the fact is, we all know what the Chinese long game is, and that is world domination, financial domination. The Chinese, inscrutable as they are, that's what they want. Talk to anybody who knows anything about Africa, and they've been buying up Africa for the past 50 years. They're building railways on loan notes all over Africa. They own a lot of the heavy metal mines in Africa. So whenever we talk about what a good job China is doing, and just remember China's attitude to intellectual copyright and intellectual property. i.e., get something, reverse engineer it, and make a copy of it. So we have to be circumspect about giving praise to what China. And again, I don't want to blame them as a nation, but you just need to know that's what the Chinese do. And while we're making grandiose claims about what it is they do, let's just remember where the information comes from China.
So I would suggest that somebody's getting paid off over here or getting contributions to their party, their Green Party from China. That's why they're so enthusiastic about it. But Bonzo actually told you quite some time ago how much money we could make out of renting out the seabed.
Yeah.
It was 100 million a year.
Yeah.
Now that figure seems to be now down to 3 million. So that sounds like the reverse of the Mersey dock area that we paid for.
Yeah.
So, and I strongly suspect that we'll end up getting next to nothing with the promise that you're going to get an interconnector free of charge, and we'll never get any rent from the seabed, and we won't get cheaper electricity either.
So you think that may be the payoff, is that they'll pay to put the second interconnector in, and that will just save that on the capital budget?
Yeah, I mean, the effect is that they'll then say, you're going to get green energy. Well, where are they going to get the green energy from? And if they don't supply enough, what's the penalty? So can you believe that this government thinks they're competent to even manage or argue about a contract like that? I'm not being funny, Andy, but we need to stick to what we can do. And that should be fixing bus shelters, fixing the roads, making sure old people can stay warm, not running around being world leaders in stuff and doing things like putting 1,000-foot wind turbine farms up.
And maybe finishing paying for Pulrose Power Station as well.
Yeah, I mean, just if you want to rent in the seabed, fine, rent in the seabed. Get the 100 million, pay off some of the debts, pay off some of the stuff that they want to keep buying and spending money on, and keep that money. And if we want an interconnector, we really need one, work out why we need one and what we're going to do about getting it, instead of running around saying we're going to put a wind farm at Erie Stone. I'm getting to the stage where you can't get the truth because they don't want to tell you. And it also comes down to things like the airport up north. So they want to change that airport to a runway. I mean, where did that come from? Did we hear where it came from? No. What we get told, it's a big mistake, I'm sorry for all the upset. It's just stop trying to cover things up and just tell the truth.
It will be interesting. I mean, in just over 2 years' time, there's going to be an election, and I can absolutely guarantee the same will happen as last time. Everybody will talk about transparency. All the candidates will talk about transparency and open government. That's what will happen. And it's just a shame sometimes that perhaps they don't trust the public as much as the public deserve to be trusted.
Well, I think the first thing that you should do immediately is anybody that pays taxes has to vote. That should be a requirement, because that way you will actually get a vote. Instead of getting 10% of the voters out, you'll get them all out. Make it easy. Send them a letter and say, right, put an X on here. What do you reckon? Should we do this? Should we do that? And get on with it. But the problem is you've got no control over them. And there is no way of voting in the right people because it's an old boys club. They all support each other. It's terrible.
Okay. All right.
I'm not being negative, Andy. I just don't see the transparency and clarity that you should be deserving of.
It seems to me you're like most of us, Tony. You're trying to find a way through the weeds. We're trying to see, if you like, the wood for the trees for all this.
Yeah, if they were all cushions, we'd see them, wouldn't we?
All right,
but they wouldn't change because they won't come down.
Thanks, Tony.
That's true. You take care, Andy.
Bye.
And they need to stop insulting Julian because he does a really good job of clarifying things.
All right. Okay.
And because he doesn't read The Guardian doesn't mean he's an idiot. Okay?
Thanks for that. All right.
All the best. Bye.
The 3 legs were highlighted by the application of fertiliser from memory, says 170. Talking to 3 legs, the gateway to the Isle of Man, the sea terminal, government facility, has got 2 Manx flags flying upside down. Really? 170 says that more attention to detail and accountability are required by all sectors of government. Is it true there's 3 legs on the top of the lemon squeezer, on the top of the what used to be the crow's nest? Is it true? On the roof there is 3 legs there? I'd be interested to know. You can see it from space. The 3 legs there in the 1970s, and photos, yes. If you want to just Google, says Trevor, 3 legs image at Knockaloe Farm, there's a photo there. And very nice it is too as well. Does the loss of Live at Home mean that the island's Mannin Sheds operations will be lost also? It's not clear from what Mr. Gorn has said. We wish them well. The Mannin Sheds do a great job in Ramsey, so that's some facility there. It'll be interesting to see what happens, and we'll wait to see what happens to Live at Home. I'm sure I saw a company cleaning bus shelters a couple of months ago. Was it called Heritage Cleaners? Says 952. Is that somebody's job? Thank you, Peter Killier, who sent me the 3 legs of man photo in Knockaloe. It's very impressive. It'd be nice if we had that nowadays, wouldn't we? Let's go to John with us. Hi, John.
Hi, Andy. Your last caller was talking about China.
Yeah.
That took me back a long way. 1951, Ramsey Grammar School. We had a very good teacher called Mr. Sandwell. Now, I don't suppose there's many of us left that will remember Mr. Sandwell, but when it was a really nice hot day, he used to take us out on to the grass area, and we'd have the lesson on the grass outside.
Yeah.
And I can remember this as clear as it was yesterday. It was a geography lesson, and the subject was China. And you've got to remember, in 1951, China was just a country, the other side of the world, that nobody really knew much about. We didn't even have Chinese restaurants. But I always remember, as clear as today, at the end of the lesson, he looked at us very seriously and said, "One day, the Chinese will rule the world." And I've never forgotten that statement. And now, when you look at China, the way it's, over the years, it's evolved and come up, I've got a feeling he was right.
Well, they play the long game, don't they?
Oh, yes. Yes, but I don't know what Mr. Sandwell knew or thought or what, but that was what he said. China will rule the world one day.
There we are. Okay.
And it is heading that way, isn't it?
It seems so. I mean, and do you remember once upon a time, if you ever bought anything and it had made in China on the back, you thought it was old tat, you thought it was rubbish.
Yes, you did. And now, you know, there's so much stuff coming out of China, and it's good quality.
All right. Okay. We appreciate that. Thanks for being with us today. Good to hear from you, John. Thanks for that. And let's get to Eddie with us now. Hi, Eddie.
Hi, Andy. All right.
Very good. Thanks. Yes.
Good. Just listening in. You had a caller earlier who was saying it would be lovely if the government would actually give us some idea of either how much money we're going to make or whatever from these wind turbines, whether they be on land or whether they be at sea.
Well, I mean, it must be fairly simple to work out. If we're renting them an area of our seabed and there's a certain number of wind turbines, surely it will either be the number of turbines or the amount of electricity that's generated. Surely, I mean, it can't be that difficult to work that out. Or maybe they know and they're just not saying.
Well, first of all, the one on land, I think the reason why they won't give you some idea of figures there is because, like, our group alone have searched for 2.5 years to find anywhere that actually makes money. It's everywhere we've found it's gone up in price. So they're not really going to tell you that, are they?
What's gone up in price?
Electricity.
Oh, the cost, the unit cost per hour to the consumer, yeah.
Well, that like you said before, it'd be nice to simplify things, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So it's either going to cost you money or it's going to make you money. And up to now, we've not found anywhere, apart from the 3 that we mentioned, like China, no truth coming out of there, Russia, no truth, and Denmark. So the answer to that one is we don't know anywhere that it's cheaper.
Well, some people make money out of wind turbines, don't they? I mean, if you're a farmer who rents out your field to an electricity company to put a wind turbine in your field, then you make money from that, don't you? So surely, I mean, who owns the land at Erie Staine? Who's the landowner?
The government own that.
Right.
What I was going to say, secondly, on that point is, you had a comment from somebody the other day, and I thought it was a lovely terminology about Trigger's brush. And if our government, as they've suggested, they're going to not only buy them, erect them, and maintain them, then it will be another Trigger's brush, won't it? We already know that they don't make electricity any cheaper. That's what we already know ourselves. So once it's in the government hands, they haven't got a clue what they're doing. So usually when you get amateurs playing around with something that's quite professional, it costs a lot of money. So going back now to the ones at sea, again, that is just a simple equation like you want answers to, very simple, simple answers to what everybody's trying to make dead complicated.
It just feels sometimes, Eddie, as though the government don't trust the public. It's almost like that we can't be trusted with the information.
Well, we've been asking for clarity for years, and we're not getting... Do you know, right at the very beginning, they promised there would be a public meeting about all this stuff for the people who of this area. They still haven't even done that. There is nobody been in touch with the people in this area at all. We've had promise after promise, but no. They want to... Nobody trusts the government. When you're talking about trust, I haven't trusted this government or the one prior to it, actually. Nothing that comes out of there has any clarity at all in any way. It just seems as though they're holding everything back for a reason. And it's usually that's very suspicious.
Okay.
The people out here say that anyway. But the ones all the way down the East Coast, that's going to be a business deal. Nothing else. It will be a business deal between Ørsted and the government.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's hope that they send in a better negotiating team that negotiated the Liverpool landing stage.
What did I hear something the other day that somebody said that the original cost of that was $3.5 million?
Well, I think it started off at about, didn't it, 25, 30 odd million?
Well, I think Sue, my wife, was reading somewhere originally, before it was even started, that it was estimated at £3.5 million.
Wow.
And it's possibly 90, is it?
I think it's knocking around 85 plus at the moment, yeah.
Yeah, well, just think what this wind farm could cost the taxpayers of the Isle of Man. We've only got, is it 800 billion in reserves?
Million, yeah.
We could halve that.
All right. Okay, thanks, Eddie.
Pleasure.
Good to hear from you. The three legs at Knockaloe were reinstated in the 1980s. I remember seeing them, says Malcolm, and they've since grown out. It's a shame, really. And the strange thing is that a lot of Manx people didn't like the three legs on North Barrule as well, says Malcolm. If you've got any thoughts on that, text, email, call, WhatsApp. And Andy dropped me a note to say, please, who's allowing the NSC Cycle Raceway to be named after an individual? Surely socialism requires it to be the Douglas City Raceway. Oh, I see. Socialism. They want to expunge memorial names from Douglas. Also on the list will be renaming Douglas City Park. Has Councillor Bentley, who's the chair of the Regeneration Committee, offered Manx Radio his reasoning for expunging people's names from history. So presumably they'll get rid of Loch Promenade after Governor Locke. You never know. Could happen. Yes, what's happening here on Thursday? There's a big do on Thursday at the NSC. There's going to be a ride-out for Mark Cavendish. The Manx missile is returning home to the Isle of Man this week, and there's going to be a national celebration in honour of his record-breaking career. This Thursday, 15th of August, 1 o'clock at the National Sports Centre in Douglas. Apparently the weather's going to be okay. Sir Mark Cavendish Lap of Honour homecoming for the Manx missile. It's going to be Sir Mark's first visit home since he claimed a record-breaking 35th career Tour de France stage win, and this is an invitation to everybody to celebrate his remarkable careers, to line the NSC Raceway for a flag-waving roar of appreciation as Sir Mark completes a lap of honour on his first cycling track. That's astonishing, isn't it? No doubt Dot Tilbury's going to be there. Dot was one of Mark Cavendish's first coaches. The raceway is being renamed as a tribute to Mark Cavendish, who's got 165 career victories. It's going to last about half an hour, and it's hope if you're at work, you may be able to attend during lunch breaks. That's 1 p.m. Thursday at the National Sports Centre in Douglas, the Sir Mark Cavendish Lap of Honour. Maybe you'll get a tandem and Dot will sit on the back. Hello, Nigel. He said, Andy, those Manx potatoes I got free at the show were absolutely fantastic. I'm going to buy Manx potatoes all the time now. That's a lost leader for you. Thanks to Chris Quirk on the phones today. Back tomorrow, high noon.